What is going on, guys and girls? It's GhostRobo, and next gen is officially here, or at least a teensy tiny piece of it. The PlayStation 4 controller, the Dualshock 4, has been unleashed to the public before the system, which comes November 15th. For some reason, these things weren't straight dated, even though the games and the system themselves probably are pretty darn strictly. These guys are out in the wild. I picked mine up from GameStop. You can probably check your local GameStop. I would venture to say a store like a GameStop will probably have it more than like a Walmart, perhaps Best Buy or someone as well who focuses on electronics. But let's open this bad boy up. I played this guy actually with games at E3 way back in June, so my hands-on time with this was decently significant. I played a multitude of games and got to test out the triggers and the buttons and everything about it, and I really thought it was a huge improvement over this guy, the Dualshock 3. I'm not the biggest fan of the Sony controller, but let me tell you, as a definite Xbox controller preferential person, the Dualshock 4 makes huge strides in the right direction. And while we won't be able to use this thing on actual games for another 2.5 weeks, you get to see the bad boy controller right here, and we'll talk about some of the comparisons between it and the previous Sony model. Now this thing kind of takes on more of the boomerang structure and form that the PlayStation 3 controller originally was going to have, and now it's become fully realized here in the PlayStation 4 model. Something I think is interesting right off the bat, if you notice, is that they've removed the Sony logo from the front of the controller, which I find incredibly odd. I don't know why they chose to do this. It's now right there on the top, if you can see it in very small lettering. Just kind of an odd aesthetic choice, and the thing I like least about this controller is the way it looks. I feel like it looks like a knockoff controller. It reminds me of sort of Pelican brand or Mad Catz branded stuff from the PlayStation 2 era, but ignoring the look of the thing, it controls and functions so good. The first bit that I want you guys to focus on is the nubs on the analog sticks. A lot of people have big problems with the PlayStation 2 and 3 analog sticks because they're very non-grippy. People would put extenders on them, people would put extra grip on them. Here you've got two really good analog sticks. I have to say that I like the analog sticks better on the PlayStation 4 DualShock 4 than I do on the Xbox One controller. The Xbox One controller's analog sticks are a little bit smaller, and while I still favor the position of the offset analog sticks, I like these actual sticks better. They feel so good in your hand. They feel like you have much better control and are pretty much perfect. Now the D-pad's a little bit odd. The buttons and D-pad have a different feel than what you might expect. They feel almost, they're just deeper set in the controller. I don't know if you can tell that from the video here, but they don't have as much pop as they did on the DualShock 3, which I'm not sure if that was on purpose or just whatever, but something about it just feels a little bit more shallow and small. I don't know if we can get a direct comparison here, and I'm trying to look at them myself, but the buttons just, I don't know, they're closer together. I think they're closer together. Like the circle, the pallets that they're sort of housed in are smaller on this guy, which creates kind of a really interesting look and feel. The controller is a mix of black and gray. You can see the back is very gray, and then the front is very black. You've got the light bar on top, which will illuminate different colors along the way. Let's talk about some more things we got going on here. Interesting, instead of start and select, we now have share and options. So no start and select, you've got a share button right there and an options button right there, which I think is kind of an interesting choice. But these will integrate better with the PlayStation 4 interface, with being able to upload clips, and then I'm guessing options is sort of a direct key to the start menu. Why they're calling it options and not start, a little bit strange. Triggers, let's talk triggers. It's a big thing for a lot of people. I still don't necessarily like the position of these triggers. I still wish they were more back here, but I will say they do feel better. They feel better than this guy. These are basically, they're cushions more than triggers. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but if you play a lot of PlayStation 3, you know what I'm talking about. They feel more like cushions that you're like compressing rather than triggers that you're popping a la Xbox 360. Here they're more like triggers because of the fact that the form factor of these guys, and it's going to be hard to see on video, is a little bit concave here. So your fingers rest in them, and it feels more like that trigger feel as opposed to like I'm depressing these heavy cushions. L1 and R1 are pretty similar. They're more rounded and more poppy though. It still feels a little bit like two bumpers, but I gotta say that the design of the sticks and the triggers here are significantly better, and I feel like shooters, namely Killzone Shadowfall, are going to play really well when this thing launches. Now, the biggest, whatever moment of this controller is the touchpad right here. This thing is strange. First of all, it's not apparently being used in a lot of launch games, which is a little bit odd, at least in heavy ways, maybe slight gimmicky ways, but it's not like they're trying to Wiimote this thing into your living room. But what's odd is it can be depressed in any direction. You can push down on it at any point, and it will bend in that way, which again gives off this appearance of it feeling kind of toy-like. These things aren't cheap, and it sure doesn't handle cheap when you're actually playing a game, but something about the appearance of it just doesn't appeal to me fully. I think the light bar is the coolest part of the whole dang controller because it lights up, typically the Sony blue, very akin to this box, and then kind of modifies itself based on the mood of the game, supposedly, or what's going on in the game to be different colors. That seems pretty futuristic, maybe useless, but futuristic nonetheless. But the front of the controller, I don't think it looks that good. I think this is a better, like, looking controller, heck of a lot better functioning controller. And when it comes to playing games, what do you care more about, aesthetics or actual functionality? I definitely take the mechanical functionality of the DualShock 4 over the 3 10 out of 10 times. So while this controller felt like a 6 out of 10 to me, this guy feels like a solid like 8, 9 out of 10. And time will tell whether that number holds up or drops or raises based on how it actually controls, with games like Killzone Shadowfall, with games like Infamous Second Son, and then also with multi-platform titles, your NBA 2K14s, your Need for Speed Rivals, Drive Club eventually, Watch Dogs eventually, stuff like that. So very, very cool controller, especially from a functionality standpoint. It still feels futuristic. Maybe that's what they were going for. Maybe the no Sony on the front, the big goofy touchpad in the middle, the light bar, the gray back, the weird dots on the nubs. We're going for some like future space thing. It's about the same size in terms of like actual size. I feel like the handles are a little bit longer. They extend more. Again, it just feels better in your hands. You got a solid grip on this thing, and you're going to steer your way to gaming paradise in just about 2.5 weeks. My dog is more excited for next-gen consoles, apparently, than even me, because I can't manage to bark during this video, but she sure can. No, I'm super excited for the console. I can't wait for them to come out. Last thing I'll show you is the port is different. If you can see that we get right up in there, the port here is different on this controller than the mini USB on the DualShock 3. I'm guessing they're going even more proprietary or something of this sort. I'm just going to get some up-close personal shots. Before we wrap up, you can probably pick one of these up if you're in the US or Canada. Not sure if they have been unleashed in Europe yet. DualShock 4, you got the PlayStation button down here, probably for your home access, and we're getting some light-up action because it's trying to like sync itself. These can apparently be used with like PlayStation 3. I know you're getting horrible lighting on me, but I want you to see the controller. Mac, maybe even PC as well. The trigger's looking nice, the bumper's looking good, the button's looking hot. I freaking can't wait. I know my dog's barking, but goodness gracious, I want to scream. The console launch is my favorite time of all of gaming. There hasn't really been a major one for years and years, what, like 7, 8 years? The Wii U counts, I'm not discrediting that, but it felt more like a stair step rather than a leap. I take these to be more leaps. The controllers, the graphics, everything is kind of really stepping the game up to a whole nother level, where the Wii U kind of elevated things to current status with some new features. I love the Wii U, but PlayStation 4 is going to be awesome. 2.5 weeks till this bad boy launches. I will see you there. Definitely subscribe if you're excited for all the launch games, all the launch coverage, and more. Until next time, guys and girls, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy the PlayStation 4 controller unboxing. Until next time, thanks again. Drink so much. I will see you all later.